You're losing fat before you can actually notice it. And if you're already training hard, reducing sugar and carbs, but still looking in the mirror and thinking, is this actually working? Well, here are 5 weird signs that your body shows as it's actually happening. And if you miss these, you will doubt yourself and lose motivation. So here is what to look out for. The first sign has nothing to do with your stomach. Maybe you're a professional or a business owner who's often in back-to-back meetings and, stepping out for the second or third time before lunch, or you're up twice a night wondering if there's something wrong with your bladder. In a fat loss deficit, your body burns glycogen first, and each gram of glycogen holds 3 to 4 grams of water. So as that glycogen empties, that water moves through your blood, through your kidneys, and it's not your bladder or your age, it's just your body letting go of this water that we're holding in those cells. So this hits the hardest in that first 2 to 4 weeks max during the whoosh effect phase, where guys can drop somewhere between 5 to 10 pounds or 3 to 5 kilos without using much effort. So don't panic and don't cut your water down to try and stop this. However, this next sign is one that has nothing to do with bathroom habits, and it might actually catch you off guard at different times of the day or when the season changes. So you might think is there a sudden change in the weather? Has the aircon temperature dropped when you find yourself reaching for a jacket or a jumper? And here's what often happens. In a deficit, your body gradually slows down your BMR or your metabolism to conserve energy, which produces a little bit less heat. And then also you're digesting less food, which means there's less heat from that too. So fat also acts as this thermal blanket. So as it starts to leave the body, then you lose a little bit of that insulation. And I was cutting for a natural bodybuilding show, I noticed that I felt even colder deeper into the deficit the longer it went on. Before I was anywhere near stage length. This isn't necessarily proof that you've lost a lot of fat already, but just a sign that your deficit is functioning and more fat to lose is already on its way up. But this next sign is one that most guys mistake for something going wrong, when it's actually the one that I look for every single cut that I've ever done. So when the deficit has kicked in and the water's gone and your food starts to smell amazingly good and junk food looks way more tempting, and you're hungry before your meals, between your meals, and then right after you've eaten, and it feels like there's something wrong and you shouldn't be feeling this hungry, well, nothing is actually wrong. And here's why. So leptin is the hormone that your fat cells release to keep hunger in check. So basically to say I'm full. And ghrelin is the hormone that drives hunger up. So as your fat is declining, your leptin, I'm full hormone drops, and your ghrelin rises, which is the hunger signal getting stronger. The problem is most guys aren't mentally prepared for this, and they think that this is a bad sign and that it shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't be hungry, and I just don't like this. This is too hard, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually one of the first things I look for when I want to get leaner. Also, some guys will adapt and won't feel that hungry at all. They'll just feel normal, and that's fine too. But generally, hunger creeping in is a good sign. It's worked for me that way. It's worked for many clients that way. And if that's where you're at right now, and you're doing everything right, but you're still kind of, white knuckling the cravings and forcing yourself not to eat, but then cracking under pressure and then binging, and then you're getting stuck in these plateaus, and you just can't figure out why you're not getting leaner. And that's usually the point where most of the men I coach actually reached out for help. So links in the description to learn more about that. But hunger isn't the only thing that can trick you on this path. This next sign will also show up early. So if the scale hasn't moved for 3 weeks, but your jeans are looser and your progress photo looks tighter compared to the old one, then what are you gonna actually trust here? The thing is, body composition means that you can be losing fat while still holding on to water, glycogen at the same time, and maybe some newbie gains in muscle, but that takes a little bit longer. So the scale doesn't move immediately when you start a diet, though fat is genuinely leaving at the same time. So you push harder in training for a week, or you eat a big salty meal, or you've had a lot of water from going on a big hike or whatever, that can look like it's burying the fat loss on the scale further. But there's this lag effect that's always at play. Your weight can swing up to 5 pounds or 2 to 3 kilos in one day. If you weighed yourself every single hour, you would see all these fluctuations happening in real time. So day to day, the swings are always going to be there. A lot of it is just from water and food and going to the bathroom. Completely normal. So running progress off the scale alone is a bit like trying to run a business off one number. If you only check your quarterly revenue, then you're going to miss all the stuff that's actually happening with leads, retention, expenses, and all that. So your waist measurements and your before and after photos is actually tracking your shape, and the scale just tracks the weight of your total body mass. It's helpful, but it's not everything. If your waist is shrinking or your photos are looking tighter compared to the last lot, trust that over a stored scale every single time. And there's a sign to check that most guys have instant access to, but never actually look at it. Your fitness device or Oura Ring can show you this before you start to see any major changes in your body shape. So let me quickly tell you why this matters. So visceral fat is metabolically active tissue, and across multiple studies in healthy adult and clinical populations, it's consistently linked to higher resting heart rate and a lower HRV, which is heart rate variability. And that's because it pumps out more inflammatory compounds, which keep your nervous system slightly more switched on even when you're at rest. So as visceral fat starts to decline, that inflammation will also decline. If you're carrying extra weight and you're over 40, you're sitting in the high, 70s or low 80s in the heart rate, that is still completely normal. Realistically, you're looking at your resting heart rate dropping somewhere between 3 to 5 beats per minute over 8 to 12 weeks of consistent fat loss alongside your HRV steadily increasing while tracking this on your fitness device. And so this last sign is something that most guys experience early but easily dismiss. Someone may say,
Are you okay? You're looking different.
or your rings are just sliding off more easily, or you've dropped 1 to 2 belt holes. But when you look in the mirror, you just can't notice any change in your chest, your belly, and your hips. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Blood flow to the face, the neck, the fingers, and your toes and lower legs and all that is much higher than blood flow to belly fat and visceral belly fat. So the fat is going to mobilize there first, and it just wouldn't make sense for our body to hold a lot of fat in our fingers, face, and feet, of course. So your belly, your chest, and your hips are just the largest storage container. They're always going to be the last to show the drop, even while the fat loss is genuinely happening. So don't be discouraged if the leanness in other areas or like awkward compliments come in before your belly is, flat and starting to look defined. That's just the order the body works in. So men who are training hard but expecting the belly to lean out first are going to give up, they're going to stall out, and another 6 months later, still carrying the same gut, just feeling a little bit older and probably more frustrated. And if you're already doing the work, but you're tired of not seeing these results from your effort, that is exactly the problem I solve with the men I coach one-to-one using my metabolic recon method. We build it around your training, your work, your life schedule, so that you're not guessing. Links in the description below this video if you want to learn more about that. Then go watch this video next to see the brutally honest timeline to get lean.